Hey guys, welcome to my most recent review here on Our Game, and it feels like it's been a little bit of time since I've been on camera for you guys. It was probably because I've had a few games I've been playing, but we're going to get going. We're getting back with the reviews because a couple of games are finishing, and we're going to go for Sonic Shadow Generations today. I'm wearing red because I don't actually have anything black to wear that I can really think of wearing. I've got blue and I'm not going to get changed halfway through. I'm not going to put you through that. I'm wearing blue boxer shorts. I definitely am not showing you that. We are not that kind of channel. It's probably not what you want to see on here. But anyway, in a way, I'm unsure how to properly structure this review because in a way, it's sort of like two games and I kind of want to talk about them separately, but also together. It's a bit hard to explain. I'm not going to lie. But I have my notes, I have pages of notes, and we're going to go through this kind of little script. And we'll see where we get to with all my other little random chat that I often throw in. But I want to just say thank you for everyone who watched the series. Please do go check it out if you haven't. And thank you for all the likes and comments on those videos. Subscribe if you have not. I might play more Sonic games if you guys want, or go check out some of my other videos. Let me know what you like. You know, easy enough. But I reckon we'll start with Shadow Generations. It's the new one. It's the newer part of the big game, separate game, new game. This is why it's so confusing. But it's the main reason why people have always been buying this, and I think it's what everyone wants to talk about. So we'll start that. And suffice to say, there's going to be lots of spoilers throughout the whole thing. I am not going to keep putting up spoiler warning. I just sort of leave it and get it done early stage. So I probably do need to set the story slightly for both games to kind of help explain how it works in Shadow Generations. I will obviously spoil the link between the two, which is the change from the original. There might be two changes. I'm not sure. I didn't play the original. So some big bad. So we're talking about the Sonic game here. So some big bad has started changing the world by manipulating time and kidnapped all of Sonic's friends. As seems to happen quite a lot to Sonic. Really bad friend, I have to say. There are two Sonics left, but they don't quite realise until they free Tails, who then works out, as always, the really clever one, that effectively there's a classic Sonic and a modern Sonic, and it's their speed that seems to have stopped them getting caught in the time, and they seem to be able to restore time by completing levels. It's kind of like, ooh, there's these stages from the past Sonic games. So in a way, it's kind of like they're restoring that history of the game. And he releases a few more friends as he goes within the hub world. I guess that's kind of how I do it. But the two Sonics are classic Sonic, which is 2D, and modern Sonic, which is 3D. I'm glad I didn't turn it like that for the two. Thinking about it now, that could have got me a strike off by YouTube. But I think that's kind of all the story you'd need to know for the Shadow part. We'll cover more later. Don't worry about that. So instead of being frozen, captured, or whatever it is, for Shadow is actually sent to his own hub world with stages to complete himself. Now to unlock the world. Now you don't know this in the Sonic game through. And there's no reference to it anywhere as far as more in the original. So this is kind of just added and completely new. And unlike, obviously, for Sonic will explain the big bad later. For Shadow, it's not that big bad. He's kind of been brought here by Black Doom, who, if you know Shadow lore, and I don't know that much, he's kind of the guy who gave Gerald Robotnik the DNA materials explanation on how to create Shadow. So he's sort of linked to Shadow. He's kind of like genetically his father, you could say, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure that much. But I think Black Doom is implied that he's piggybacked on this time dilation to bring Shadow in. Sorry, page down. And his plan is to effectively make Shadow complete these stages, at which point he kind of unlocks more power. And then that power grows Shadow into the ultimate weapon, not the ultimate life form. That's Shadow's view. Black Doom wants to create him into the ultimate weapon, at which point he'll take over his body. And apparently this is Blade Black Doom's plan since the very beginning. We'll totally ignore the game with Shadow and Black Doom in. but you know, it is what it is. We had things like this randomly in games all the time. So that's his plan. And obviously this is all kind of in theory going on in parallel to the main game, but because it's time, who knows if it's parallel before, after. But because it's time related, Maria and Gerald, Dr. Gerald Robotnik, are there in the game. They're obviously pre-death versions. So they notice Shadow's different than as they know him. And Shadow's been through a lot. And there's a few comments where Shadow wants to tell Maria what's going to happen and to save her. Maria doesn't want it and just wants Shadow to do the right thing in a way. A bit like how in obviously Sonic Adventure 2 where Shadow realizes what Maria wanted. Like, yeah, obviously. Why is it always Maria? Why is it always Maria? I've never quite got Superman, Batman, Shadow. Always Maria. Sonic needs a Maria now. And then they can have their really weird... Anyway, forget that. So... obviously, Doom is wanting him to get all this power, and I think turn him like crazy with power and evil. I think it's kind of, but Maria brings him strong and makes him fight Black Doom, who then becomes a new version Devil Doom, which is like his ultimate form. With the promise that Shadow will remain Shadow, and that's what he does, and he manages to beat him. But then in the process, he obviously loses Maria again, and is heartbroken. Simple, I guess. I mean, in fairness, it is when you play it, it's harder than I thought it would be trying to explain it and make it make sense. Yeah, the game does benefit from fleshing out Maria and Gerald a little bit more than you've ever seen, rather than like, I think maybe in comic books, maybe they're in. I don't know, I've never read that kind of stuff. But it just adds extra lore and also explains more of how Shadow was created, why he was created. It gives us a little bits on Shadow, which I think is really good and really handy. So all in all, it's fairly enjoyable and it's quite engaging, I would say. It keeps you playing because you know it's not a long part of the game, but it does keep you playing, I would say, for me anyway. But the link between the two, we're going to do the link between the two. So at the start of the Sonic game, Sonic's having a birthday party when all his friends are captured. While that's happening, Rouge, I always thought it was Rogue. I think Rogue is a far better name considering she's a thief, but that's a different argument that we're going to have. But it's Rouge calls Shadow, who is up on the colony arc, up there. Why I have to tip my head? Because that makes it easier to see in space, see? Oh my god. Yeah, but Rouge rings Shadows, who's up there, and if I remember it rightly, she invites him. She says, "Are you coming?" And he's like, "Oh, I've got some stuff to do." Which is the point where the arc goes all weird, and he kind of falls into the timey-wimey stuff created by Devil Doom. Once the story comes out about how Devil Doom has sort of backed Black Doom, has backed onto the pigtails of the big bad of the Sonic game. I'm trying to give that away yet, in case you don't want to watch that part of the review. It's a bit strange how he seems to have done it. It's not the same, but you know, he drags him into the hub world. And then, boom, he's in. But what happens in the Sonic game is there's a point where you fight Shadow. And in that, you beat Shadow as a boss. It's kind of like a running boss, chase boss sort of thing. But you beat him and you get the Chaos Emerald from him. In the Shadow playthrough, what happens, there's no reference to it particularly, except it's random cutscene once you finish a level. You don't fight Sonic. You just have this random cutscene where that plays out. They're losing to, he doesn't lose properly. It's a bit strange. I can't really explain it, how to word it properly, but it doesn't show him losing, but it shows him giving up the emerald to Sonic, put it that way. And then it turns out it was a fake emerald he gave him, not the real one. And it's like, oh my God, I got you. And then you finish off the Shadow playthrough, and he says at the end, once he's lost Maria and Gerald again, I need to go give Sonic the real emerald. But then it never shows that in Sonic. That never comes up. and he is then at the party, the birthday party at the end. I don't know if in Sonic Generations he is there in the actual party. Like I say, I've never played it, so I don't know if he appears or they've added him. But yeah, I mean, it's not a complex link. It adds, but it does feel a little contrived, to be fair. It does feel like they've put it in when it wouldn't really have worked properly if they'd have done that. They did have had to change it a little bit for me. But anyway, let's get onto the gameplay. So Shadow's gameplay is very much, I think, based on Sonic Frontiers, a modern Sonic style game where I think they've taken the ability Sonic has, basic like boost and homing attack, and then just put Shadow's frame on it. I think it's probably what they've done. Changed the size of it. The sizing's a bit different, but I think that's effectively what they've done. He's got double jump. He's got a good homing attack. Feels smooth, quick. You know, the camera's pretty good. The two acts are done like they are done in Sonic Generations. Mainly Act 1 on Shadow is Act 1 is 3D, Act 2 is 2D, which is the other way around to Sonic Generations, or it's the same way around. But basically, you play as Shadow both times rather than swapping into a different version of Shadow. You are just Shadow. One's platforming and one's like the main 3D kind of way you're used to playing of Sonic as Shadow, if that makes sense. But they're good. The levels are designed really weird, really well. I think they're nice. Obviously, the 2D ones are new versions of the levels. I would say, I was going to throw this in a bit later, but I'll throw it in now because it feels like it's going to go. So there's a Sonic Frontiers stage, but Shadow is never in Sonic Frontiers. I don't know whether that implies they're going to say he was there, it changes a bit of the story. They're going to create some new DLC, or it's just a bit lazy on their part because they're obviously using the Sonic gameplay model from that game where they've just recycled a bit of a level rather than creating another stage for Shadow. I feel that's the one they've gone with, but you know, yeah, fine. It doesn't really matter that much, does it? It's just a little bit. Once I thought of that, I was like, maybe that is the thing. It puts me down a little bit. But obviously, Shadow has the boost, like Sonic, where you get the rings, you fight the enemies, and you get a little bit of boost. But he also has chaos control, where he can slow down time. So I think it's 5 seconds. I don't think you can extend it for anything, but it's like 5 seconds. And that helps when there's like really quick enemies chasing you and you can slow things down. You can jump on stuff that was moving that would kill you beforehand. It just adds something a little bit for Shadow. And I don't know if any of the other games, I don't know if Shadow ever had chaos control as an ability. I don't think he does in Sonic Adventure 2. It's ages since I played it, but I don't think he does. But that's kind of his. I know he has it in the cutscenes, but I don't think if he actually has it as a main move that you can use. But I don't know. Let me know if that's the case. But the start of the game does make out that chaos controls are really important, and then kind of not. It isn't till right at the end where the final boss. I think you use it a couple of times in boss fight, but it really is not as important as it makes out it's going to be. But obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Black Doom gives you these abilities, unlocks these abilities for you, and Shadow doesn't realise that Black Doom's doing it. There, you get Chaos Spears, you get Doom Surf, Doom Morph, Doom Wings, Doom. Some other ones I probably should have looked them up. I can't remember them all. But they're not all that useful, to be honest. They're sort of used in certain parts and certain levels as you unlock them. The next level will usually always need that. But doesn't really add much to the game. I would say the Doom Wings end up being a bit like the Super Shadow. You don't get Super Shadow. So upset that you didn't get Super Shadow at any point. I really wish they'd have added that, but they didn't. But you get these Doom Wings that you need for the final boss. And I feel like that's the equivalent. So when you replay the game, you can use the Doom Wings once you get 50 rings, which is obviously usually designed for Supersonic. And you can just fly through like a level and like properly fly, like just go all over it. So I feel that's kind of it, but you're not invulnerable. So that's kind of their version. Doom Surf is cool because instead of drowning when you hit the water, you automatically just surf over it. The other ones, it's more implied exactly when to use them and you know when to use it. But the Doom Surf's quite cool. I like that one. But I feel like I feel like they might be using this to separate themselves from Sonic. I hope in future games they use this, but maybe unlocks it by having the Chaos Emeralds or something. They can't use it from the start, but I feel like instead of just making him Sonic but black and red, this gives him a bit of separation, because I'm pretty sure in lore Shadow is meant to be stronger. I'm saying it. I think Shadow's meant to be stronger, especially if he takes the rings off. He's meant to be unstoppable. But like, the game is Sonic, so Sonic always has to win or be better, and that's kind of like probably I think why I didn't put Super Shadow in, because it overplays Sonic. So this gives him something a bit separate that they could play with. They can allow Shadow to do stuff that Sonic can't, and it separates him a bit like Knuckles. And then maybe you're not as worried if Shadow gets beat all the time. You know, maybe they could imply something that it weakens him or something like that, but it allows him to do all these other things. But anyway, I'm going to go on a rant if I keep talking about that. The game made me love Shadow even more. I liked Shadow anyway. Shadow is favourite character. I think basically anyone plays Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow's the favourite character. But the game made me like him even more. I think the voice acting was really good. I think it is. People have been arguing about it. But yeah, I think it was really good. It makes me really... I liked how it played, how the control was and things like that. The DLC, which I will just mention, I think, which was tied into the movie. So it doesn't really change the plot. And basically it adds one stage and 2 challenges to it. And the link is the rings from the films, which are like transport rings, if you've not seen the film. They open up and they can send you anywhere. I believe it's anywhere he wants to go, but it sends you anywhere. So there's one of those rings falls into this hub world, opens up a link to our Tokyo, or the movie Tokyo, which I think is meant to be our Tokyo. But you go there, and when he goes through, Shadow's look changes to the movie Shadow, and his voice changes to Keanu Reeves. But as Keanu at the time didn't know what he was recording when he was doing that, I always thought it was a good little thing. But it is the Shadow from the game, because he even mentions, I must have gone to another dimension. What is this kind of thing? But it's just a bit of a tie-in. It's a nice little add-on. I got it included because I got I pre-ordered the game, which had it in, and it did say you get it for free. So, I believe I got it for free. You could then obviously buy it as DLC. I think, I don't know, is it like 4 or 5 quid? I don't know. I'm in England, so it's quid. Don't know about dollars. But would I pay for it? Probably not. I don't think it's worth paying for. It's a nice little nod to anything, but it doesn't add anything to the main game. It's not like a proper DLC like the Rising Tide on Final Fantasy 16. I don't know why that's the one that I randomly picked, so I was just probably reading an article about it. But yeah, it's a nice little add-on. Wouldn't pay for it if I didn't have to, if I'm going to be honest, unless you really like Shadow. But yeah, the game I liked. I can't deny it. I did like this game. But let's move on to the actual Sonic Generations part of the game. The original game was effectively a remaster. So apparently, the developers say you should play Sonic side and then play the Shadow side. Now, story-wise, it doesn't make any difference, I think, apart from it explains it a little bit more, kind of how the timey stuff's going on, I guess. But it doesn't really need that much. Shadow does add enough comment on it, really, for you to be able to play it. But obviously I didn't do that. Of course I didn't. When would I ever do something like I was meant to do? I wanted to get the Shadow story out there because that's what everyone was buying it for, and that's a new bit, and I thought I might get more views. Sue me. Don't sue me. Oh my god, I cannot afford to get sued. Please don't sue me. we obviously covered most of the Sonic story earlier, but the final details that it's modern Eggman who's the bad guy behind it all. After one of the Sonic games, I think he does mention it, or when he says when he got beaten in some context, he was floating and found a time controlling thing. And then he used that to create a machine to start going through time and ruining it. But he kidnaps classic Eggman to complete it. Because through the game, until that point, you're fighting bosses from classic Eggman and then the racing bosses. But obviously 2 Eggman can't beat 2 Sonic. I think I want to cover my gripes with the game first. So Oh, I have to go a bit too far. So it's basically a remaster of the original game. I never played the original game. From what I can tell and what I've read, they've improved the graphics of the characters and the levels. Don't know if they've changed the models or any of the layout, but they've just improved the graphics. So they do match probably Shadow, just sometimes around the corners, right around the edges, it's not quite as good. It's not as clean and crisp, but it's close. And I think they've also amended some of the dialogue to make more sense and less controversial. I'm not a keyboard warrior, so I don't care. I don't think anything they say is wrong. Obviously, I didn't play the original. I don't think they say anything really wrong in the original. But people have been complaining it's been like toned down and made woke. Freaking computer game. Chill out. Christ. Anyway. It's fine. It doesn't make that big deal. Anyway. However, my issue is the fact that they haven't updated the controls. Not on classic Sonic. His gameplay is very simple and it doesn't really need changing. You know, he is what he is. Like it's like the Mega Drive Sonic. You know, you just play him platforming. It's quite easy. You jump. You know, I've just wrote one line there, and I was trying to fill that out a little bit, but you know, oh well. So I think for me, it's modern Sonic that needs the update. He is meant to have similar gameplay to Shadow. Shadow is meant to have similar gameplay to Sonic. I think is probably the way the game is made. So you'd expect him to control the same, right? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a double jump. His double jump is, his second jump is a homing attack. But you also have another button for homing attack. So it's jump, homing attack. Where Shadow can do a double jump. If you're homing on something, oh, excuse me, Shadow will homing attack it as his double jump, but he doesn't have to. Whereas and Sonic just has this weird, like, double jump where he kind of homing attacks and just rolls off things and stuff. You know, and the homing attack's not as smooth. The camera doesn't work as well, so it's hard to, if you're trying to go through a load of enemies and they're all sort of zigzaggy, it's hard to get the camera to pick the correct one. So sometimes you'll attack one and you think you're going to go left, and then you think you're going to go right, and then the camera hasn't done it, so it doesn't detect the enemy, and you fall to your death, which is really annoying. And I think that's why they want you to play Sonic first as well. I think this is the real reason, because what they want is you sort of pick this up as the first game, as the first part. You probably would find it easier because the Sonic control is quite frustrating. But if that's the only thing you've known, I think you'd probably adjust quicker. But if you played Shadow first, it's really smooth and nice and modern. I think it's harder to adjust, or I find it harder to adjust. I don't think I ever really got it properly. But I managed to feel it. It was like quite a jarring experience for me. And that's the biggest issue. It feels rushed. Like a bit like the reusing of the Sonic Frontiers for Shadow. It's like a corner they've cut to get the game out. It's kind of like somebody came up with this idea a bit too short to do it properly. A bit too short notice. I just wouldn't mind as much if the Sonic part was I kind of wouldn't mind if they'd just gone, here's the original Sonic generations bundled with Shadow generations, and kind of made them really properly separate games. I think I won't mind as much. So I go, right, well, I'm playing a PS3, Xbox, was it 360, Xbox One game. I just don't think I'd mind as much, but it's meant to be like a proper modern remaster. I'm pretty sure they're even going to say it in the marketing spiel. So when it's not, it's just, all right, run over. I'm going to move on. I'm probably going to have another rant in a minute. The game itself does play fairly linear. You complete 2 stages per act. Act 1 is 2D, Act 2 is 3D for modern Sonic. You play through the different eras, so there's 3 stages per stage, really, before each boss. So the first one's kind of like the Sonic 1, 2, 3 era. So like, for me, I'm going to say the Mega Drive. That was it for me, but I think they call it the Genesis era. But they're effectively the same thing, aren't they? The Mega Drive and the Genesis. Mega Drive might be in the UK name. I don't know. Comments below. I mean, no, there's loads of things you guys probably should let me know. This is how this works. I say things, you correct me, and then I go, oh no, I'm wrong. I don't know if that actually, you can hear that. I don't know, it might be too muffled. Anyway. And then you have 3 stages from the Dreamcast and 3 stages from like the more modern Sonic. So we're talking the PS3 area. So the Sonic 06, I think Sonic Unleashed, and I don't know what the other one is. Sonic Forces, Sonic Heroes, well, that kind of game. Anyway, but I like how the early games, they've made 3D levels based on those levels for modern Sonic, and then the later games they've made 2D versions of the levels for classic Sonic. I quite like that little touch. It's added something new. It's not just, they're not just reused the levels from those games. And then after each three stages, you get in them fight a boss. But to unlock him, you have to do 1 or 2, I can't remember, 1 or 2 challenges for classic Sonic and 1 or 2 challenges for modern Sonic. We'll come back to that, but you do that and then it releases the boss. There's also like a chase boss, so you get Metal Sonic, Shadow and Silver, which is another Chaos Emerald for beating those, and then the main boss is Eggman boss and Perfect Chaos for the Dreamcast era, which obviously is not an Eggman, but it's kind of Eggman inspired. It's not a totally separate character. And then after you got them all, and obviously we've mentioned Shadow earlier, it's that fight that's the linked one. You get to fight the Time Eater Eggman boss as double Supersonic. You have classic Supersonic and modern Supersonic. I was so excited for this. And I'm going to have another rant. Yeah, the final boss isn't very good for me. I was really disappointed by it. You're playing as the Supersonics, and I feel like you should get a real sense of speed from them, but it felt really slowed down. Now, I know he does affect time and does slow it down, but it even tells you he's about to slow down time. But when you're actually trying to get to him, and that's usually the modern Sonic part. You're charging down, you're boosting as Supersonic, so you don't have to worry about running out of boost. But you never seem to get close to him. It doesn't feel quick. It's just like, like that. But at the same time, when you're not boosting, it just feels like, I was really disappointed. They don't get the feel of speed. If anything, they feel slower than normal Sonic when Sonic's running, because it's in this like space area. So there's no real perception of things moving, if you get what I mean. Oh, that's going to be a really bad clip if that gets out there. I just it left me feeling underwhelmed, because, you know, 2 Super Sonics, you feel it's going to be epic. But, I mean, the game itself is good. You know, apart from the frustrating controls. Oh no! The other thing, it's a frustration with the Sonic side, improvement for the Shadow side. So the Sonic side, to fight the bosses, you do the challenges. But you only have to do, I'm pretty sure I can't remember exactly how many, but basically you only have to do about, I think you have to do less than 4. Out of 15 each time. So there's 90 challenges. So there's 15 for classic, 15 for modern in all 3 stages. So it's 30 per of the 3 acts, sort of thing. So there's 90. Now, you don't have to do all 90, but it feels very much like it's in there for filler. And I did all 90. Oh my God, some of them, especially at the end, they were taking forever, multiple times, especially the Vector one. That's infamous. I think it works with the controls from Sonic. That's the biggest problem, the modern controls, because you have to hit notes back to him at last second. And it's really hard to get it because the camera's not moving properly. It's infuriating. Whereas with Shadow, they give you 3 sets of 2 challenges, and you only have to do 1 of each of the pairs. So you only have to do 3 per boss, and there's 3 bosses. So you have to do 3 again. I think it's probably, but to get the 6 is fine. I think their challenges are more, not difficult, but they're more complex, the Shadow challenges, because they're kind of sort of doing maybe 2 in 1, like rings and time, whereas the Sonic ones, they shorten levels and things just to do that certain bit. Shadow ones like the full level. I think they're a bit more difficult, but if you can finish the levels, you can finish them, not a problem. It just makes it more satisfying, whereas the Sonic ones was not satisfying to complete them all, if I'm honest. It's just a pain in the arse. I just did it for you guys. And to prove that, kind of prove that I could do it. But, you know, I think a lot of people have that gripe with them, if I'm honest. But I just feel like they should have made Shadow's side more individual and possibly a prequel or sequel to the Sonic game, and then just package the Sonic up as the original game. I feel like that could have been a better way of doing it. Whereas this was like marketed as, I mean, it was marketed almost as like a brand new game, but as a proper remaster at the very least of the Sonic side. And you just then want it to play the same, right? I would want it to play, I would expect a remaster brought up to modern standards. If they then added new content, that would all play very similar, that they'd have similar controls. I think it's reasonable to expect that, but they didn't have it. But I think if you, like I say, I think if you played it the way they tell you to play it, the Sonic side, you wouldn't mind it as much, and you'd think the Shadow side was even better. Whereas I'm going to say Shadow is awesome, and he deserves more game time. Even his own game. Hopefully now they'll give him his own game. We'll get one. Another game. I never played Shadow the Hedgehog, I think it's called. But hopefully we'll get it, especially if the film does well. Or it'll be in, and it'll not be as much in Sonic's shadow. Hey? 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 Yeah. But my hope is kind of like the Doom powers. While they're not amazing, they sort of stay just to separate Sonic. I mean, Shadow doesn't have to stay in his shadow. Because, I mean, you know, to me as a character, Shadow's often overshadowed. I hadn't planned that one. The other one I wrote that one. That one was a mistake. Oh yeah, but yeah. I will try and stop now. I will stop. Try. I will come out of the shadow. Oh god. Well, I'm on a roll. I'm gonna stop before I spin dash into a catastrophe. Stop, Ed. Seriously. That's a really bad joke as well. That wasn't even that funny. So yeah, the Shadow game is definitely great. Definitely play it if you can. But the Sonic is just a letdown. If the Sonic team are really clever, what they'll do is, now that they've released that game and obviously made a load of money, especially attached to the film, maybe when the film comes out on DVD or digital release or whatever, or it's all died down properly, they'll release the Shadow game on its own, just that part of the game. Obviously, they can't just go, well, Sonic Shadow Generations was sold at 50 quid brand new. As it's been sold, it's come down in price. It's now 30 quid. We'll charge you 25 quid for the Shadow side. It needs to be like proper, as though the Shadow game was released on its own from start with, which would have been like a 25 quid, 30 quid max price to start with. And then now it should be a tenner. It should almost be like a DLC price. You know, and I think that would then give them another boost, and I think actually get rave reviews for that. You know, because the Shadow game plays really well. It's short, fine, but you're selling it at a price that's short, like a DLC price. So I think that's what they should do. What do you think? What do you guys think? Have you played it? Did you play the original Sonic Generations again? Did you tell me I'm wrong, or did you have those same frustrations as I had? I don't know. I mean, are you excited for future Sonic games? I'm hoping to get more. I'm hoping to see more Shadows. How about you? Let me know below. Subscribe for more. Cheers, guys.